scheduled meeting. This is a regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll all be sitting as all special taxing districts, and this is the August the 5th, 2019. It's 9 a.m. This is the call to order. The first item in the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. So will everybody please stand and follow us on the Pledge of Allegiance? Supervisor McLeod, would you please lead us?
Sure, please join me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. First item in the agenda is a call to the public. And the call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. I do have one card here, but you don't need to fill out a card as long as you're ready to step up and give us your name, address, social security number, and checking account number, and you'll be fine. The only speaker card that I have here is from Gene Dalby. And he wants to address the board on some item that we probably don't know what's about, but we'll wait.
Good morning.
Morning,
Good
Jim.
morning.
Gene Dalby, 1183 West 37th Street. Another beautiful day in Yuma County.
Good for biking.
Yes, every day. I mean, that's forever, you know. My message this morning is thank you. Thank you for what each of you do. Thank you for the departments that you lead and administrator that you've selected to run this county. And I'm telling you, we're making great progress, I think. The attitude among people in this community is great. And the heat's not so bad. You know, the fact of the matter is we have our county back. You know, our snowbirds are gone, and this is our real citizen population that really stays here through the duration. But thank you for what you do, and I appreciate it. And I'll be looking forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dalby. Well, we got to bask in that for a minute, okay? Because we certainly get all the criticism all the time. No, really, thank you very much, Jim. It's appreciated. Is there anyone else in the public that wants to address the board on an item that isn't in the agenda? If it is in the agenda, you know, you just wait there. I'm going to leave the call to the public open until the end of the meeting in case someone wants to address us or, you know, gets here a little late. So I'm going to move on to the next item, which is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations and may announce the appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. There will be no legal action taken. Are there any appointments for the Board of Adjustment and the Planning and Zoning Commission? We have no vacancies right now. So the next item in the agenda is the presentation of the Yuma County Quarterly Safety Award, Excellence Award by the County Administrator, Susan Thorpe. Susan, be safe.
Yes, good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. The Yuma County Safety Excellence Award recognizes county employees who consistently promote safety in the workplace. Any employee can nominate another county employee for a quarterly or annual award. Nominations are screened for eligibility, and a committee of staff members selects the award recipient from the eligible nominations. Nominees are recognized in the U-Count News, receive a certificate of achievement, a safety challenge coin, and a commemorative safety mug. All nominees are eligible for the annual Safety Excellence Award in conjunction with our Employee Appreciation Ceremony. The winner of today's Quarterly Safety Excellence Award will receive a $100 net cash award, and the annual award winner receives $250 net cash award and a plaque. So I'm pleased to recognize the 4 nominees for the Safety Excellence Award for the 4th quarter. They are Lynn Harlow Smith with the Health Department, Dale Alexandre with the Recorder's Office and Elections, Barbara Diaz with the Health Department, and Mike Esslinger with Juvenile Court. First, I'd like to ask Lynn Harlow Smith to join me at the podium to be recognized. Lynn is the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for the Health Department. She was just promoted to this position last month and has been with Yuma County for a little over 5 years. Lynn has been working with the Heat, Illness, and Awareness campaign. She formerly worked in public works before moving to health, so understanding the exposures of public health employees to the elements, she also understood that public works employees are exposed. Lynn ensured that OSHA posters related to heat, Illness and awareness were distributed specifically to the Public Works employees. This new information helps employees know the steps to take to prevent illness. As another example of Lynn's focus on safety, she greatly expanded the number of community cooling sites and water stations available to the public, working with local businesses and nonprofits to sign up as sponsoring sites. You saw the results of Lynn's work when the health director presented these maps at a recent board meeting. Thank you, Lynn.
All right.
Now I would like to invite David Alexandre to join me at the podium to be recognized. David is elections specialist in the recorder's office. He has worked in his current position and has worked for Yuma County for about 2 years. David has been an important part of safety and security for the new offices at 197 South Main since the building opened. That building includes assessor, recorder, treasurer, and election services. David served as the front desk and de facto security officer until we hired the real security officer a few months ago. David has shown exceptional awareness and appreciation for safety. He has addressed and de-escalated irate and disruptive customers, mentally ill visitors, and occasionally a threat from an individual claiming he would bring a weapon into the building. Throughout these incidents, David remained calm and focused on handling issues effectively and calling on law enforcement when needed. Thank you, David. Now I'd like to invite Barbara Diaz to join me at the podium to be recognized. Barbara is administrative assistant in the health department. She has served in her current position for 2 years and has worked for Yuma County for 5 years. In addition to her regular job, Barbara is the safety officer for the entire health department. Barbara has developed and implemented several new safety procedures and training for all health employees. She has created a procedure for deliveries to the health department so they do not accumulate in the hallway and pose a safety risk. She also created a vehicle inspection form that requires employees to inspect their vehicle's condition to ensure it's working properly before being driven. Barbara has also given valuable advice to employees responsible for delivering cash deposits to the treasurer's office. She suggested taking varying routes each time, being aware of your surroundings, and using different sizes and colors of containers to camouflage the fact that they are carrying a cash deposit bag. The employees responsible for carrying cash expressed their appreciation for Barbara's proactive approach to their safety and security. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. And last but not least, I would like to invite Mike Esslinger to join me at the podium to be recognized. Mike is a community restoration supervisor in the juvenile court. He has served in his current position for 13 years and has worked for Yuma County courts for more than 18 years. Mike has been a leader in efforts to raise awareness about the opioid crisis. He has organized several trainings to increase staff's knowledge and safety practices in terms of dealing with fentanyl and opiate overdose identification and the use of Naxalone, also referred to as Narcan, as an antidote. In February, Mike was instrumental in bringing fentanyl awareness training presented by DEA, Homeland Security, and Customs and Border Protection to over 100 staff within 3 county departments: juvenile court, adult probation, and county attorney. In April, Mike organized to bring Narcan training to 70 juvenile and adult probation staff. Because of his efforts, juvenile court staff have increased safety awareness, training, and equipment to deal with potential exposure to opioids. Thank you, Mike. So lots of really good nominees, and it's always difficult to select the winner. So it's exciting to share these nominations with you, and I'd like to thank and commend all our 4 nominees for their dedication and service to safety. I also want to encourage everyone to nominate deserving fellow employees for this award. Now I'm pleased to announce that our Safety Excellence Award recipient for the 4th quarter is Ms. Barbara Diaz.
Picture with her.
So Barbara gets a check for $100 and a certificate to recognize you as the winner. So if you would like to come and take a photo. Yes. Thank you.
We're going to get a picture taken with you. What are you talking about? We're a member of government. Thank you for everything you do. I'd like to give that check back. You know, Susan, we should be giving her that huge check so we can take it back. Just for the picture. All right, the next item in the agenda is the presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel.
Local art teachers, along with Yuma County Juvenile Court staff, team up to create a mural. A number of volunteer court-appointed special advocates are sworn in for duty. And our Emergency Management Department practices setting up their command center. These stories and more, this is your County Line. If you've watched our program before, you may know our juvenile court is heavily involved in changing the way the public refers to and communicates with young people involved with the courts. A simple label like Kids at Hope makes an incredible difference. But it's more than words. At the end of July, 4 local Yuma and Gadsden School District art teachers teamed up with juvenile court staff and youth to create a Kids at Hope mural at the Juvenile Detention Center.
So we might have a young person who made a bad decision, right, and is resulting in them being in detention. And so when they walk out that door to go down that hallway to court to possibly determine their fate, again, the first thing we want them to see is hope, that they have hope, and they know that we believe in them and that there is hope.
A big thank you to David Cullison, 4th Avenue Junior High, Mackenzie May, Dorothy Hall Elementary, Jose Dorame, Roosevelt Elementary, and Joel Flores, Gadsden Elementary. These 4 donated their valuable time as treasure hunters to help Kids at Hope be more successful. A great moment for abused and neglected children in Yuma County as new court-appointed special advocates, or CASAs, as they're sworn in for duty. A total of 20 CASAs are now qualified to speak up for abused and neglected children. These volunteers are appointed by a judge to stand up for kids.
The CASAs is another caring adult who are helping us and helping children and families who have experienced some type of trauma. And they're pretty important because they're part of the overall services that we provide here at the Juvenile Justice Center.
The nationwide CASA program can't survive without volunteers. Yuma County CASA program is in desperate need of help. In Yuma County, there are only 48 volunteers for 92 children, and 151 more children need the care and support of a CASA volunteer. You can help. Just call CASA of Yuma at 314-1830. Emergency preparedness is more than just a kit in your car. It's constant planning and preparedness, and your emergency management office knows this best. Recently, your County Office of Emergency Management practiced preparedness by setting up their Emergency Operations Center, or EOC. The EOC is the central command station that your county would staff to coordinate emergency response or recovery, like after a large earthquake.
In the case that we do need to activate this Emergency Operations Center, we want to ensure that we're communicating effectively, not only to our community, Yuma County, but also to ensure that we're talking to the state, which is DEMA.
Once an alert goes out, designated county personnel from key departments head over to Public Works to assemble the EOC and set up the communications gear for a coordinated response. Your County Office of Emergency Preparedness does a lot to stay a step ahead of disaster. Visit yumacountyaz.gov and find them under the Government tab. You can learn more about what to do in case of an emergency or disaster in Yuma County. Hi, my name is Trisha, and this is your Health Watch. Students across Yuma County are heading back to school soon, and the Yuma County Health Services District has some tips to help you and your family kick off the school year on a healthy note. Remind students participating in organized sport activities to stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and recognize symptoms of heat-related illness, which include muscle cramps, weakness, nausea, vomiting, and dizziness. Update your child's medical record. Notify the school of any allergies or chronic medical conditions and get the necessary immunizations. This is also a good time to schedule annual physicals and wellness exams. Make sleep a priority. Glowing light from cell phone and tablet screens can disrupt sleep cycles, so make sure to put away all electronics at least 30 minutes before bed and aim for 8 hours of sleep. Promote good hygiene habits. You should also instruct them not to share food or drinks with other kids. Manage stress. Kids often have a mix of excitement and anxiety as the first day of school approaches. Stress can lead to a variety of health issues. Help manage stress by asking them what is on their mind. For more information, please contact the Yuma County Public Health Services District at 928-317-4550. That's all for now, and until next time, stay healthy, Yuma.
As you've seen before, we like to take a moment each quarter to recognize our Safety Award winner. And while many times we find ourselves recognizing people that have done something big, this Safety Award reminds us it's the little things too. Barbara Diaz is an administrative assistant with our health district. Barbara has clearly set herself as a safety-conscious person. For starters, she took a big role in the development of building safety and emergency procedures for the health district. She also developed and implemented forms and policies to make the vehicle fleet safer, all the way to creating a specific protocol for transporting money to the treasurer's office in order to keep staff safe. It's Barbara's meticulous attention to detail that keeps everyone safe at the health district, and is why Barbara Diaz is the Safety Award recipient for Yuma County this quarter. Congratulations to all 3 award recipients and for making Yuma County government such a great place to work. Before we go, we'd like to recognize both Yuma County and the Yuma County Jail District for their recent award. Both received a top national honor from the Government Finance Officers Association recently for excellence in financial reporting for their diligence in publishing the comprehensive annual financial report. After careful selection from an impartial panel, they were selected for demonstrating the highest standards of financial accounting and full disclosure. This award is the nation's highest form of recognition in government accounting. Congratulations! We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
Today. All right. That takes care of item number 2. I will go on to item number 3. In honor of outstanding law enforcement officers throughout Congressman Paul Gosar's District Number 4 during National Law Enforcement Week, we'll have Teresa Martinez, Director of Coalitions and Hispanic Outreach. There she is. Give us a little more information on this.
First of all, thank you so very much. I'm Teresa Martinez. I'm from the office of Congressman Paul Gosar. Just wanted to know that everybody is jealous of me today because I get to be here in Yuma. We love coming to Yuma. I don't know if you know that from the congressman and from his staff, but the food is excellent. So we just love coming to Yuma. Congressman Paul Gosar, as you know, is very thankful to the law enforcement community throughout the entire district. And we have had a wonderful working relationship with all our county supervisors, but particularly with Sheriff Wilmot. So we wanted to thank you and let you know the wonderful job that he is doing. He has been very instrumental in helping us present an award to a deserving officer. So if you don't mind, I'd like to put on my cheaters and go ahead and read what was written about your outstanding officer that was selected.
Oh, we do mind, though. Can you do it without him?
You know what? I can't.
We know how you feel.
Okay, thank you. It is with great pleasure that I nominate Senior Deputy Jason Hemstreet for congressional recognition. Senior Deputy Hemstreet has been employed with the Yuma County Sheriff's Office since September 2003 Senior Deputy Hemstreet has proven to be dedicated to service and has shown his willingness to involve himself in all aspects of the Yuma County Sheriff's Office. Senior Deputy Hemstreet was assigned to Patrol Bureau upon his hire, where he quickly proved himself and received Rookie of the Year, as well as Officer of the Year, and numerous other awards throughout his career. In 2004, he was assigned to the Water Safety Enforcement Division Boat Patrol, where he was able to show his ability to work with minimal supervision and under extreme conditions. Senior Deputy Hemstreet has also taken on several collateral duties on top of his normal patrol functions. He is a member of the department's special response team, where he is an assistant team leader and coordinates all SRT training. He is also on the department's firearms team and has been a part of the dive team, EOD, and field training officer. He was assigned to the Criminal Investigations Bureau in 2016 and is currently assigned as Major Crimes Investigator. Since being assigned to the Criminal Investigations, he has been the case agent or co-case on homicides, attempted homicides, and robbery. He is always willing to go the extra mile in investigations to ensure proper outcome and justice is served. Senior Deputy Hemstreet always makes himself available to be called out and is willing to assist fellow investigators. His actions and commitment have shown that he is dedicated to service as well as to the Yuma County Sheriff's Office and citizens of Yuma County. It is for these reasons I nominate Senior Deputy Jason Hemstreet for congressional recognition. And this was respectfully submitted by his Sergeant Ron Voss. So, sir, would you join me up here? And would you please give him a special round of applause? So I'm going to show them right here. Oh, right here.
Yeah, bring him over.
And then we're going to go over there and get another picture.
Yes.
Stop hiding yourself.
Turn it there. Turn it down.
You're still hiding yourself.
Okay, we're just going to.
Turn it backwards.
Yeah, we're going to. I'm too short for that podium. And you know what? Oh, okay. And then you can take a picture with my phone too. Okay.
We'll fold it.
There you
Backwards.
go.
1, 2, 3.
Now, can I have the sheriff and maybe the board join
Sure.
us
Sure.
as well, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
I got
Thank you
fit,
for your
though.
service.
That was good to be next to the sheriff without him being behind you.
I was just going to say, you know, he's scary.
I'll show you the
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, good. Thank you.
We're going the sideway one.
We are.
There
Because
you go. One.
There's a trick.
We're
so
gonna
you
take
just gotta
two.
go like
1, 2, 3. And one more, hold on.
Did you get her phone too?
1, 2.
He's going to send it to her.
The
that.
beauty
He's in
of
Facebook jail. You can't send it to me.
I wasn't gonna mention that. I was not gonna mention that. When Annie takes some pictures, you're in front of her. You are.
Well, this means come here.
In your case, knowing you're in jail already, I'm not gonna mention it.
Oh. Kevin's in Facebook jail, everybody.
Not work with it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Jared.
Thank you for
Thank you. Oh, no, thank you for having me. Thank you.
I already did you.
I know. Well done, son. Good job.
This will be the last time we mention jail in the meeting.
Worked for me for many years. No, you're not my son.
Oh, my God.
Yes, okay.
He worked for me for many
So,
years.
yes, I know, I know how that works, yes.
Okie dokie. All right, we'll, yeah. There's some selfies being taken right now and some money exchanging hands. Anyway, let's move on. 4, next item is when the chairman proclaims the month of August 2019 as Child Support Awareness Month. And Supervisor Pancrase will do us the honor. Thank you, Supervisor.
Proclaiming the month of August 2019 as Child Support Awareness Month. Whereas Yuma County joins the nation in recognizing August as Child Support Awareness Month and reaffirms its commitment to strengthening Arizona's families by providing child support services to improve the economic stability and well-being of children. And whereas a child who receives emotional and financial support is more likely to feel safe and secure and is better equipped with the courage to be their very best in life. And whereas the Arizona Department of Economic Security Division of Child Support Services, DCSS, is robustly committed to putting Arizona's children first and to humbly serving Arizonans with excellence, respect, integrity, and kindness, as well as being an overall champion for economic growth and opportunity. And whereas DCSS is a strong advocate for shared parenting responsibilities because parents and children benefit when both parents are engaged with their child at every stage, regardless of marital status. And whereas strengthening individuals and families with an emphasis on fiscal responsibility promotes the safety and well-being of children, provides stability, improves the lives of children, and provides opportunity for families to be able to enhance their children's future. Now, therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of August 2019 to be Child Support Awareness Month.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that takes care of that. Is there anyone here to, take the proclamation? Okay, fine, so we'll move on then. We will go into discussion and action items. Oh, wait a minute, I can't, well, it's consent, right? The next item is consent calendar. The following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. The items are 1 through 9. Does anybody want to pull any items?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item 4.
4. I'd like to put item 9, since we do have a special visitor today. So items 4 and 9, is there any other items to be pulled? Are there any other items to be pulled? No? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items, consent items 1 through 9 with the exception of 4 and 9. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? There's motion and second to approve consent calendars items 1 through 9 with the exception of 4 and 9. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to opening up item number 4 in the consent calendar, which is for the clerk of the board to recommend state approval of a special event liquor license application, series number 6, submitted by Teresa June Morse, doing business as Mickey B's, 12635 East South Frontage Road, Yuma, Arizona, 85367, state license 061700047. Okay, who's submitting this one? I know you asked, Mr. Simmons, I know you asked for it to be open up. Is there a question you need to?
Well, the reason I wanted to pull, Mr. Chairman, is on here it's got as a special event liquor license, and this should be an owner transfer, I believe, with the series number 6. And I just wanted to get it clarified for the.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's a
The miss-
scrivener's error. It should just simply say recommend approval of liquor license application. Wouldn't leave out special.
Yeah,
events.
as long as it meets the requirements of posting, and as long as everybody can come and talk about it, I think we'll probably be.
All right, we verified the number posted was correct on the application.
So the number is correct, the application is correct, it's just listed as a special event instead of a transfer, which we'll clear out by discussing it today.
Thank you.
Okay, fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions on this?
With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 4 as amended.
Second.
All right. Item number 4 is amended, meaning that we are now fully aware that it is a transfer of license as opposed to a special event liquor license recommendation. Any more discussion on the item? No? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for the clarification. On item number 9 is for the recorder. or elections, and authorize the chairman to sign an agreement with the Arizona Secretary of State Office for reimbursement associated with the county usage of the Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements, SAVE program. Now, the reason I asked for it, I read the agreement. I just didn't understand exactly when you use it. Do you use it all the time when people register, or do you use it when they go to vote, when somebody goes to vote, can't prove their citizenship?
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, the program named SAVE is utilized for registration verification. So if we receive a registration form from a prospective voter, in the event we're unable to use our resources we have through the state database, or the state database doesn't provide some sort of proof of citizenship for the individual, then we have the resource of using the SAVE program if the individual has provided an alien registration number, a name, and a date of birth. But for a little bit of background, a few of us asked the Secretary of State's office to oversee this program last year and take the cost on because the counties, the 13 rural counties, were using the program. It's a online accessible program that we can sign into and utilize the records. However, we were all paying $25 a month to be able to use the service. And some of us, I think we used it 5 times last year for 5 individuals. So we asked that the state oversee it so that all 13 counties didn't have to each pay $25 a month. And they will be paying for the entire state. We'll go through them to run them. Each check is a very minimal amount. So there's not a large financial impact, but it seemed silly that all of us counties were paying for a service we use very minimally.
Okay, so essentially, so essentially you used it 5 times maybe last year, and I did see, upon reviewing and reading the agreement, if no county uses it, you actually you don't even pay the fee, right?
Chairman Reyes, that's correct. We won't pay the fee if we're not utilizing it. So the counties that do utilize it in a given month will pay the associated fee. We probably will use it more in the upcoming year because of the election, so we'll have an increase in voter registration. But the times that we can utilize it are based on the information, the number of times we have a voter giving us that particular set of data on a form.
So essentially, this is a system that we utilize to make sure that every voter that registers actually is able to register under a citizenship requirement.
Yes, Chairman Reyes, members of the board, this would clarify the eligibility of the voter either as a state full ballot voter for county, local issues, and state issues, or deemed a federal voter if there's other requirements that aren't met.
All right. Well, I just, it's in part of this is just to inform the public there is a system to verify citizenship when somebody registers in case they can't provide verifiable, something that the state can't provide in forms of ID. So you can actually access the federal file system that allows you to check. So the likelihood of a non-citizen voting is very slim.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, that's very accurate. It is very slim. We do utilize the state system first because the data is very robust. So that federal record system is something we don't even have to take that next step most of the time, but it is correct to say that it is
highly unlikely.
A quality control piece that allows us to ensure that we're compliant with the law in regard to voter registration.
Thank you. Is there any questions, comments? No? No? Good, thank you.
Very
It's
good
good to
change.
clear out
All
the
right.
public, yes. I'll entertain a motion to approve item 9 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second to approve item 9 as presented. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Maybe I should have asked if there was any further discussion, but I didn't see any, so. All right, thank you very much. We will move on to discussion and action items, where the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. Normally, we have this at the end. It seems to be a little bit different in this agenda. The county administration discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items, an update regarding any legislative proposals Yuma County may want to put forward for the, we see that's for the CSA summit, and an update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priority. Yeah, there may be handouts, but I don't see any, so, Paul?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Paul Melcher, Director of Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs. So as you said, Mr. Chairman, the first half of the item is just to check one last time with the board to see if there are any topics for CSA proposed legislation to put forward.
This is in October, right? CSA Legislative Summit is in October?
That's
Yes.
correct. We have an August 12th deadline coming up for any submittals, but we still have time in case the board wanted to bring anything forward.
Well, that agricultural exemption really brings out the Maricopa County supervisors.
Yeah.
Maybe we had to bring that up again.
That one's dead.
That was dead. Well, anyway, I'd just like to do that for Mr. Hickman, you know.
You're welcome.
Yeah. No, thank you, Paul. I mean, I thought there was something wrong with my glasses when I saw you, but I guess you're growing a beard. Is that from here? This one?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I thought, as I've suffered
But it
also
look
from male
older.
pattern baldness, maybe I would do a preemptive.
I tell you,
before I
it's a
had to shave,
failure.
so.
You will fail.
Uh,
Look at me, it doesn't make any
Look at him,
difference.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't improve that much. Anyway, Paul, thank you very much. And if anybody wants anything added there, I mean, you know, you let them know.
Okay.
All right?
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, second half, I have two quick updates for you. The updates are related to state implementation plans for PM10 and ozone. Last week, I was able to work out schedules and finalize them with staff from ADEQ. So just as a quick announcement, the ozone SIP is scheduled to be submitted to EPA on July 24th, 2020. There's a lot of things that'll be going on in between there in terms of the scheduling, but I just wanted to give you that deadline just as a heads up. And for the PM10 state implementation plan, that'll be submitted in October 25th of 2019. So we have a lot of things going on in between. I'll work with the county administrator to keep the board noticed when we have public hearings that'll be coming up. And I'll also be attending monthly meetings for both of these just to make sure that everything's on track and moving forward. So I was very happy that we got those schedules finalized and moving forward. It gives us a certain sense of assurity that as we move things forward with PM10 and ozone, we've been working on those really hard. We want to see some results going forward, both from ADQ to get this to EPA for consideration. Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to entertain any questions if the board has them.
Any questions?
No, I just want to thank Paul for his efforts. It looks like we have a goal. I mean, we see the end of the line, you know what I'm saying? That we finally, it's been going on forever and ever, so it finally looks like we have an ending date, you know, where it might be
Just don't
over.
use the light at the end of the tunnel analogy because it may be a train coming. Huh?
I know. Knock on
Right.
wood, yes, because you
Let's wait
never
till
know.
it's done. All right.
You've done a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, Paul, thank you very much for that expedited presentation. And we move on now to the planning and zoning agenda. And the planning and zoning agenda, their full legal description of property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. This will be an expedited rezoning and public hearings. The items, which is in some ways like a consent agenda for a regular meeting, and the items will be open as a group for public hearing and acted upon by one motion to adopt a recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any item that are removed or that is removed by the board member for separate consideration. The item will be discussed and acted upon separately following action on expedited items. We have 1 and 2 items on the expedited agenda. The cases are rezoning case 1901, Felipe Meyer, agent for Lone Palm Holdings, Arizona LLC, requests the rezoning of parcel 205 acres in size from a planned development, PD, to recreational vehicle park, RVP, on assessor's parcel number 632-43-091, located at 347 South May Avenue, Yuma, Arizona. If we take this up, a PowerPoint presentation will be given by staff. Development Services Planning and Zoning Division, rezoning case number 1905, Robert Basso requests the rezoning of a parcel of approximately 0.41 acres in size from rural area 20-acre minimum to low-density residential 15,000 square feet minimum, and assessor's parcel number 459-59032, located at 11219 South Fisher's Landing Road in Yuma, Arizona. There will also be a power presentation given by staff if desired. Now, I don't desire power presentations almost ever, but if desired, there will be one. So there are 2 expedited cases. Any of the board members want to pull any of the 2 of them out for discussion? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve expedited cases 1 and 2. Oh, wait a minute, I have to have a public hearing. I'm sorry. I will open up a public hearing anyway. Is there anyone in the public that wants to address the board on these 2 expedited items? If not, then I'll open it to the board for their decision. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And the motion will be to accept the planning and zoning, planning and zoning recommendation of approval, right?
Yes.
Right, is there a
For
second?
rezoning. Mhm.
Motion a second to approve items 1 and 2 as presented. Is there any additional discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? See, that was an easy one.
Mhm.
Thank you for not, the PowerPoint presentation had me, scrambling there for a minute. The next item is a rezoning, regular public hearing items. The staff will make a full presentation, it's highlighted here. It's a full presentation on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion and public hearing and action by the Board of Supervisors. It is actually a commission initiative. It's Commission Initiative number 1902, a proposed text amendment to the Yuma County zoning ordinance, Section 306.03, which is a certificate of exemption, Section 309.00 permits, and Section 1208 withholding of permits. I am going to first have you give a presentation, open the public hearing, and then go back to a decision, okay? So Maggie, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. The changes before you, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation because they entails a text amendment to the zoning ordinance. However, the proposed changes to the zoning ordinance are depicted on the memorandum included in your packet. These are the changes that were discussed over almost a period of a year with the Planning and Zoning Commission subcommittee. Additionally, there were some work sessions held with the Board of Supervisors to discuss these changes that are before you today. The changes specifically pertain to Section 306.03 of the zoning ordinance, which is a proposal to strike through that section in its entirety. For Section 309, the proposal is to strike out 309C1, 5, and 6 of the zoning ordinance. And then the change to Section 1208, the intent is to strike out that section, the section as it's currently worded in the zoning ordinance, and to replace it with the wording directly from state law. The Planning and Zoning recommended approval of this request, and staff is recommending approval.
And we've had a work session on it to fully discuss it at length. So I'm going to, unless if there are no questions right now from the board, I'll open it to the public. Is there a question? No? Open it to the public. Is there anyone in the public? I was hoping for Mr. Olson to be here because, his comment in the newspaper about, not seeing much progress on some of these discussions. It may not be specifically this one, but there is progress. And, sometimes the wheels of government move a little slower than most people like. I understand that, but there is progress, and some of these items become somewhat delicate because of some of the changes. I mean, obviously, the intent of the board in general is to make things easier for our constituents, for the residents of Yuma County. But sometimes by doing that, we do create conflict between statute and between the performance of the staff. So we are very carefully moving along in this path. After that long and lengthy comment, are there any other comments? Wait, let me close up public hearing. I am hereby closing the public hearing since there was no public comments and return it to the board. Any comments?
Maggie, there were a couple of questions, I guess, made, and it was under 309C, number 1. We know that farm uses for ag are, I think they are protected by state law. Is that why we're striking that? Because state law covers it already?
Mr. Chairman, that would be correct, yes.
And I'm sure we had this discussion, and I'm sorry I don't recall. Why wouldn't we leave it in there so that it's clear to a member of the public that if they've got a farm use, they don't have to go searching statute? It's very clear in our zoning ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, like I said, these sections are already addressed by state law. And then there's all those other sections in the zoning ordinance that address the exemptions. Specifically, Section 306 of the zoning ordinance does have a mention about ARS 11.812A, which is the exemption for agricultural purposes.
So So you think the casual observer looking at that is, we're covering it okay for them?
Yes.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sorry, Supervisor
Mr.
Frank,
Mr. Chair and Maggie, if future boards decide to change some of this back again, would any of it prompt Prop 207?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to defer that to legal counsel.
Smart move. Legal counsel.
This is pretty much covered by state law anyway, so you could argue that the provisions we had were adding some administrative steps that made it more difficult.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how, if we try to bring this back, it would be a Prop 207 claim, but.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think at some particular point in time, whenever we start going through a process to make changes, I think that, common sense will tell you that, future boards may think differently.
Yeah,
They may
that's
want
right.
to follow a different path.
Mhm.
But, that's,
Nature of a board.
that's the nature, that's the nature of the board. So, the answer to that is that they could actually take, they make, have discussed them and make some changes, but then that's a little bit out of our purview unless it's state statute. And then if it's state statute, it won't matter which board takes it
into
on.
effect.
I mean,
Yeah,
they'd
I
have to
just,
follow state statute, yeah.
Yeah.
All
Things
right.
may change in the future. I just want to make sure that what we're changing isn't going to,
Conflict or something.
yeah, conflict with Prop 207.
All right, good. Thank you for the question. That's a point of clarification. I closed the public hearing, right? So we're back to the board. Is there a motion from the board to accept those changes as discussed? And I do want to emphasize for Mr. Olson, who just came back, that I did mention you a little earlier about the process taking a long time and some changes, not happening much changes. Not much has changed. I think the process here is that it's a government process that takes a little more time. And then in a situation like the board runs into, which is we're very much statute driven, state statute. So there's a very narrow channel we can follow to make changes that don't conflict with state law. So it's taking us some time to get here, but obviously the intention of the board is to go ahead and work in ways that we make our constituency, whether they're developers or residents of Yuma County, have a more welcoming and a much more easier way to navigate county regulations. All right, is there a motion to approve the changes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motion and second to approve the changes as presented on this particular item. Are there any other comments or discussions? If there are no other comments or discussions, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody in opposition? No? I didn't mean no as a vote. I meant no opposition. Right. Well, thank you. The next item is events calendar and current events, which, again, it's a little bit off sequence, but I guess we'll do it and then just finish up with the work session. I was going to do that after the work session, but let's just get it done now. Okay, Supervisor Simmons, I'll throw you off a little bit. I'll start with you.
Dang, caught me off guard here.
Yeah. I said I'm going to start with the left every once in a while.
Oh, that's good.
Mr. Simmons, get us started.
Let's see, I had a meeting with the Antelope High School superintendent and some of the other board members reference to problems they're having out there. We're trying to work through. Had elections meeting with the new elections director and the new board. It's gone very well. I think everything's running very smooth with that. Attended the chamber luncheon reference to the city council candidates, which was very enlightening. Attended the ribbon cutting at Dorothy Hall Elementary, which surprised the heck out of me how fast that school went up.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like they just did the groundbreaking, and now here they are starting school today at the school. So kudos to the city and all those involved with that project to make that happen as fast as it did. Had a meeting with Rachel Stallworth reference to the Tacner Water Company. We're in the process of doing the engineering, so it's starting to move along now. Hopefully, just need to find some land to put it on. So
Well, that's an
working
easy
on
part,
that. Had a community meeting in the foothills, which was well attended. Had about 40 people there, and just want to kind of make a comment over, we've been kind of initially starting the dark skies
Ordinance. Well,
order, or whatever you want to call it. But I've heard a lot of good comments from it. I'm also hearing some negative. Some of the negatives mainly in the city limits, which it doesn't really affect. I just encourage everybody to research it, and please get on the county website or contact your county supervisor and let them know whether you're for it, against it, or you're indifferent. It lets us know how you feel, and that's what we're here for, is to try to make things happen the way the community wants it. So, like I said, we're just in the beginning. But
light the way, huh?
Huh?
Light the way.
Light the way. There you go. But it is. I've had phone calls from the west side of the county, a lot in the foothills, Martinez Lake, and they're all wanting it to happen.
Yeah, and I, without getting into a lot of details, because we can't discuss it.
But-
Well, we're not going to get into details.
But anyway, I just mainly wanted to put, I mainly wanted to put it out there to let the public know. Please,
He started going forward. I go, all right.
please, if like I said, whether you're for it, against it, or indifferent, let us know.
If you're indifferent, don't let us know. Go ahead.
I attended the YMPO meeting, and I also attended the elections board meeting that we had. Pretty much.
Supervisor Pancracy, how does it feel to be like the third in line?
Oh, not, I attended several of the same things they did. I attended the fair relocation meeting recently, and it was very well attended, and we had a very good discussion on some of the concerns that Colonel Suggs has regarding the safety of people at the fairgrounds with the coming and going of all the aircraft.
That's not fair.
Huh?
No.
That's not fair.
That was bad.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, go ahead. You didn't get the joke. That was not fair. That's not fair, I said.
Why?
Well,
Oh,
to
the
the people
fair.
who attend the fair.
Yeah. And we discussed
That was a bad joke.
setting up a
I guess
committee.
so.
Yeah, it was.
I told you that.
Went right over my head. Anyway, we discussed setting up a short-term committee and a long-term committee for relocation of the fair rides possibly, and then the relocation of the entire fairgrounds. So
Let me ask a question on there, because this is just a question, but our, what is it called? We have an office there for the fiduciary, is it?
Yeah.
Is that going to be part of that relocation situation? No? She's
No.
not in the path?
The flight
That location's not affected at all by any fairground relocation.
All right, no, that's the question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Finish up.
So, right now it's all about money and finding the money to do both of those. Anyway, I attended the Colorado River Citizens Forum, and it was very interesting and very well attended. So, and I attended a meeting for the Yuma 50 with Congresswoman Lesko. It was nice to see her again. I served in the legislature with her about our military bases, MCAS and YPG, and the possibility of all the Yuma 50 groups in Maricopa County and Pima County and Coconino County organizing together to make sure that now that we only have 2 people on military affairs boards at the federal level instead of 6, and we no longer have Senator McCain serving as the chair, we need to make sure that we're standing together to make sure that our military bases stay right where they are, and that we get those squadrons and military personnel that we have worked so hard to recruit to Yuma County.
Yeah.
So I attended the candidates forum for the city council members put on by the Yuma Chamber. I met with Craig and Maggie and a constituent about zoning issues, and I attended the Yuma Heritage Area Board meeting. So
All right.
I'm busy.
Supervisor McLeod.
I missed all of that,
And
except
more.
for the telephone conference for the
Yes.
fair relocation, as I spent every day since the day after our last board meeting contributing to the economy of San Diego.
Well, I'm not going to say where I've been over the last few days, but suffice it to say I contributed to other set of economies. In my case, I just want to remind everyone, I have been out on vacation, but I want to remind everyone that school started. And, that means take more time to get to where you're going, because if you're going to get somewhere by 8 o'clock, you better take into account the fact that you know, if you go almost anywhere in Yuma County, that you got to take into account the fact that school stopped, and you have to work your way through some of this stuff. So, a friendly
trouble getting
reminder,
here
because
today?
I live that all the time.
Had issues today?
I
Yeah,
had
really,
issues
huh?
getting here. Other than parking, which is my normal issue. There was issues getting here today. So just a friendly reminder, school is in, and keep an eye out for the kids.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, too,
Sure.
I just wanted to add to, keep all those people in Texas and Ohio, the families that were
Yes.
affected by the shootings this weekend. Keep those families of those that were killed and injured in your thoughts and prayers.
And remember, it can happen anywhere. I mean, it really, I think we're now at that stage in the development of these issues that there's no place that you can really say it can't happen to you. So keep that in mind. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Susan, who I hope has a very short report.
Oh, come on now.
I'm just kidding.
Along with,
Expand on it.
Along with Supervisor Porteous and Simmons, I attended the Elections Advisory Committee, the first one with our Elections Director, Mary Fontes. They are well into the City of Yuma election, which is in August. I attended the YMPO board meeting, and as a follow-up to that, I'll be meeting with the city administrators, city engineers, and public works directors for all of our cities, as well as our county staff, to talk about road needs, transportation needs, and potential funding in the future. And then I attended the fair relocation meeting, and I will plan to participate on the short-term solution working group and the long-term if needed. But the short-term, we're actually looking at a grant opportunity that was brought to our attention, and Nancy Nye, our grants expert, is looking into it. It doesn't look really promising, but she's looking at other alternatives as well. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Susan, one last thing. I'd like to, for the rest of the board, I know some of the board members here participate a lot on the 197 Main Street, process. Just could you, sort of feed the rest of us some information about where it's at, where it's going, what the timeframes look like?
We canceled your office.
I mean, I don't get like an elevated office and put. No, I don't really. I mean, I heard everything is going well. I mean, I'd like to get a little more detail on it.
Yes, I'll put a summary together and send that to everybody.
Thank you. All right, then, there is a note here that there's no need for a room set up this time. So we're gonna move into the work session discussion and action items. The board will discuss or may take appropriate action on the following items. Number one is development services. Actually, both of them are development services and planning and zoning division. Discussion concerning possible text amendments to the zoning ordinance section 1107.00 temporary buildings and uses. And number two, discussion and feedback on final enforcement of development services, comprehensive permitting and enforcement policy, including comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission. All right, let's just open this one up. Who is gonna start it off? Maggie? Okay, give us a brief discussion of why we're here.
Yes, this item was brought to you last month concerning a possible amendment to the zoning ordinance to address some concerns with the approval of temporary use permits. The board requested that a work session be held to discuss the proposed changes that were drafted by staff. The changes that staff came up with, or the proposed wording, were based on comments that were received during the meeting where the board took action on the liquor license for the AZ Jamboree event in the East County. So in your packet today, there is a memorandum dated July 11th where it shows the proposed changes to the zoning ordinance, specifically adding sections C and D to section 1107.03 and rewording section 1107.04, renumbering 1107.05, and adding a new section 1107.06, and adding some additional wording to which it would be a new section 1107.07. Keep in mind that the proposed changes would affect temporary use permits for only specific types of requests. It would be for
Yeah.
requests made pursuant to section 1107.03C of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. And item C is for uses such as circuses, carnivals, and similar transient amusement enterprises subject to not more than 30 days of site occupation or operation in any 6-month period. It would not, the changes would not apply to every temporary use permit that is delineated in the zoning ordinance.
All right, are you done, Maggie?
Yes.
Okay. If I remember correctly, these issues all came forth after we had an event there that impacted, the water users and impacted, all the people who felt a concern about having an event happen, that was approved in a particular area that was controversial. They just used the word. And when the items, we asked the staff to come up with a set of regulations that will help us at least alleviate the concerns of the military, the agricultural, and then the discussion centered on whether the board wanted to have an active role in the issuance of those permits. When we saw the list of items, the requested list of items to get a permit, we said, oh, wow, that almost, that list made it very difficult for anyone to get a permit. But we understand that's the nature. I mean, at least I think I understand that's the nature of today, that if you're going to have an event, to use the example of Hillroy, where they have an event that drawing a lot of people, and they still had fencing and they still have security issues. And nowadays, it's a very complicated situation. When someone goes out and puts out an event, a massive event, or an event that's large in nature, in terms of the number of people attending. So I have literally almost changed my mind about the fact that I really looked at those requirements and thought they were too onerous, because in essence, it's better to be overly prepared than not prepared at all, or very little prepared. It's getting to a point now where I think large events like that will have to meet a lot of safety requirements and a lot of issues that we weren't thinking about in the past. And maybe this is an opportunity to get to a point where we feel, okay, if you're going to do a large scale event, there's some minimum requirements you're going to have to meet. And if you think they're too onerous, then you misrealize that that's what the current state of events are. Now, the issue that remains to me is whether the board wants to be actively involved in it. I do see that if you refuse a permit, if you deny a permit, that there's an appeal process. They can still come to the board. So that allows the board, at least some ways. Well, that's what it's
Board of Adjustment.
Oh, it's the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, I have a question about
That's
that.
right. So it's the Board of Adjustment. I did say that. And essentially, that it's probably where I'd like to focus the discussion, and whether, it's something that the board wants to get into. And I think that an appeal process is expected from us. I just don't think the Board of Adjustments is what we want to send it. I think at the end of the day, that's what we kind of were elected to deal with. So that's probably where I want to focus a little bit of the discussion. The items, I think that were at the beginning seen by us as too onerous, and we ask you to moderate a little bit of that. I think you've done a decent job, a good job of taking those comments into account. We certainly don't want to be seen as obstructionist. I mean, that we just put in a lot of obstruction into, people having a decent small event. We don't want to make it a big deal, for someone to have a church event out in the middle of nowhere or something like that. At the same time, we are concerned about, I think the board expressed certain concern about having a lot of these things happen and not knowing much about it and not having much to do with it, even when we knew about it. So I'll leave it at that. Board members? Yes. Do I have to open this to a public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, no, it is not a public hearing.
Oh, it's a work
discussion
session.
item.
Well, I would anyway, but board members, any comments, any issues? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Well, to follow up on your question, is there statutory requirement that this goes to the Board of Adjustment rather than the Board of Supervisors?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the board can specify who the appeal would go to, but I'll let legal counsel clarify that.
Mr. Chairman, it would be consistent with state statute that an appeal would go to the Board of Adjustments. That's one of their statutory functions.
However, follow up on that question. Is there anything that precludes the board from deciding they would want a denial to come to the Board of Supervisors for its appeal?
Not if you're going to leave this as a special use permit that's going to be authorized by staff. You would have to convert it into a special use permit, which essentially would make it a rezoning.
Oh, no, that's a different process. A rezoning requires posting, requires 15 days, requires discussion by the planning and zoning. It requires a lot more than a regular special use permit that is temporary in nature. We're talking about a temporary permit as opposed to a permanent permit, right?
Correct. And a temporary permit that would be reviewed by staff and could be issued within a matter of a couple of weeks.
Instead of a special use permit though, right?
Right now, they're proposing a temporary use permit that would be issued by staff that could be issued within a couple of weeks.
Right.
If there was an appeal of that, it would have to go to the Board of Adjustment.
10 days afterwards. So the
Because
question,
because they're calling it a temporary use?
Just because of the way statutes are set up, that this is the kind of item that gets reviewed by the Board of Adjustment.
which is
Could the board,
go ahead.
could the board create a section that is for special event use?
Of a certain
That would
size?
allow the board then to then be the arbiter if it was denied?
No, the board would have to decide whether or not it's going to be a
Oh, we get
temporary use permit, which would be appealed to the Board of Adjustment, or it's going to be a special use permit and it's going to be handled just like a rezoning.
Because that's the statute, we always.
Basically, the statutes have
yeah.
two different mechanisms, and you get to pick one or the other,
Right.
but not
So
create a third.
We can't make our own.
Correct.
Good try.
You know.
I know.
Well, look, we appoint the Board of Adjustments, and as long as we let them know, look, I mean, you guys all have appointments that you make to the Board of Adjustments, and we don't like to tell the Board of Adjustments what to do because they're, an independent board, and we don't. So if you have a concern, I think that we can deal with that right now just by a process where you notify the board. When you got a permit going and what the disposition of the permit, so that we're ready to act if we need to in some way or another. I mean, that's probably at this particular time, that's probably all that's left for us to do under state statute that is allowable, which is a notification process where if when you get a special event license application, that you let us know what
That's denied.
that is, what's going on or whatever. I mean, it's just a courtesy notice. I don't think we have to put it on as a regulation, but I think that you realize that those are the kind of issues that come back and bite us when we're not aware of them. So instead of having to put something on the regulations, which we can't, unless we create a third rail and, somehow are willing to take it all the way up the pole to see if it stands legal review, I think we're left with the process the way it is, which is if it's a special use permit, a permanent one, it comes through us, any appeal comes through us. And if it's a temporary one, it goes through staff. And then if there's a denial, they can appeal within 10 days. I think that's what it says there, within 10 days. I don't remember if it's business days or just calendar days, but it says within 10 days, they have to appeal to the Board of Appeal. I mean, the Board of Adjustment, which would then be the Board of Appeal.
Yeah, I have more.
Okay, so a notice, at least, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we can add that to the procedure for processing temporary use permits where the board would get notified
Of one way or another.
of a request.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That would help.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned if somebody was denied their temporary use permit, they could appeal to the Board of Adjustment. In addition, an aggrieved party, a neighbor, also would have the right to appeal that to the Board of Adjustments.
If it's denied.
No.
No, I'm saying if it were actually approved.
That would be to staff, wouldn't it?
So if staff approved a temporary use permit that a neighbor felt was contrary to the zoning ordinance, they could go to the Board of Adjustment.
Contrary to a zoning ordinance.
If they didn't like the decision, they thought it was wrong, they can appeal it.
So if you were the neighbor of where
Weird.
the special use was going to take place, or the temporary use was going to take place, you could appeal the decision to grant the permit
Within 10 days.
to the Board of Adjustment, correct?
All right, well, we don't, it's okay, fine. It's another layer of discussion that we're not ready, I am not ready to get into. Anything else, Supervisor? McCoy? Yeah. Hell, yeah, that's what they asked.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
I think that 1107.01 D as in dog.
That's a dog.
I think all of that should be removed. It's gonna make, I think it puts out little events. It's too restrictive. If I'd have known it was gonna get into things like this, I would never
Give me
wanted
a
to move
page
forward
number.
on it at all. I don't think I can vote for this as long as that's in there. This thing needs to, it's just overly restrictive. It's an overreaction to a singular event. We've been fined for 15 years that I'm aware of, and we have a singular event that started driving the conversation. Now all of a sudden we're going to lock these things down. I think it's an overreaction.
Can I make a comment regarding that? I think that the way it's stated is what creates a problem. It says temporary use permits shall only be approved provided that, and I think that's the problem. You know, the wording should be approved, taking into consideration issues like this. But when you make it, every one of those have to be, you know, taken care of. You are now, you know, actually taking the flexibility from the director to actually approve a permit that is smaller in size, that doesn't require all these things. And that's, to me, is the problem. It's not that I don't like any of the things that are listed here, it's that I think that requiring all of them to be able to issue a permit, it's a little bit, it's overkill. So is there a way to word it so that it, so that it be approved, contingent upon, certain things being, I wouldn't even use contingent.
Taken under consideration?
Yes, take it into consideration. Something that allows you the flexibility to use this criteria, but also allows you to be flexible enough to understand that, you may not want to have an activity fenced if it takes place in a secure place inside a building, for example, or something like that. You know what I'm saying, right? Because every event will have different scenarios, and putting all these requirements, all these 10 requirements as a necessity, it's overkill to me. It is overregulated now. We swung from a situation that was way too flexible to one that is way too strict. And I think that's a problem.
I don't know if you can fix it, though.
Oh, you can.
These requirements have been there anyway. I mean, you've required a perimeter fence. That was required a perimeter fence. I mean, you already have the flexibility. This is just too much. I understand where you're trying to get, and I appreciate that, but I just don't. I think it's just too much. It's an overreaction. It's just, it's my opinion.
Well, but this is the purpose. This is actually the purpose of having this discussion. The purpose of having this discussion is that life has changed dramatically, itself, and not having any of these requirements as part of the, any requirements, specific requirements, doesn't give you, well, it gives you actually a lot of power as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if it's not listed, you can still use them.
But several of the requirements, though, are when deemed necessary.
Yeah, that's right, when deemed necessary.
It's plain zoning that when they deem that.
That's what I'm saying. So the fact that they're listed today, as a requirement.
The one event that generated all of this, it didn't have any problems either.
Well, yeah, but you don't want to have problems before you put them in place.
I'm not saying I want problems, but it's like this is an overreaction is too much.
Well, I find myself thinking we need to list them. That people need to know there's some requirements that the director can use to either approve or deny, so that it gives people more guidance, which is essentially part of the process here. It's just whether we want to make sure that it doesn't say shall only be approved. That is my problem. It says shall only be approved if these things are in place, and that's a lot of stuff to have in place. Did legal give you some sort of wording that can work for us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the legal counsel suggested that we could require applicants to submit a written plan that addresses the items listed under 1107 D.
So which means that if they don't, for example, Let me give you an example. It says the activity associated with the temporary use permit maintains a setback of 100 feet from an overhead power line. Now, that's really getting down to details. So that means that you can't do anything within 100 feet, basically under a power line. Is that what it says? So if you're 70 feet away from it, is that less safe than 100 feet? Or is that more? What is that? I mean, the fact is that you could have something 95 feet away from a power line. But it says 100 feet. So if it's 100 feet, it's 100 feet. It's not 95 or 85, it's 100 feet.
Mr. Chairman, if anybody wanted to deviate from these requirements, they could request a variance from the Board of Adjustment.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman.
I think I'm starting to lean on.
I'm
Or they-
imagining a little Boy Scout troop.
Mr.
And they
Chairman,
want to put together a little
keep
event.
in mind that these requirements only apply to events such as circuses, carnivals, and similar transient amusement enterprises.
Oh, right. See, I didn't know that. I
Where
thought
did you
it
get
applied
that?
to everything.
Yeah.
1107,
Uh-huh.
1107.03C of the zoning ordinance are specifically for those types of temporary use permits.
I'm reading 110701, which is before 03.
Application for temporary uses, 1107.00.
Mr. Chairman, that section is not intended to be changed. That section will remain.
That's not what
110701?
we're proposing. Only the stuff in dark is what we're proposing changes to.
Yeah, but it's under 110701.
C,
No,
actually, B.
1107.03.
No, that's not what it says.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
1107.03.03C. Circuses,
On
carnivals.
page 314, memorandum dated July 11th. Bottom of that page.
Says, yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
And then it goes, that's 110701.
And there are no
Application.
changes in bold for section 1107.01. Nothing is in bold under that
I'm
section.
looking at it.
And
Do you
maybe-
see what I'm looking at?
It's already it's already in place.
No, I'm looking at the
I'm
same-
looking at the memorandum dated July 11th, 2019 that was referred to earlier.
Yes, that's the existing zoning ordinance.
It's got bolded type in it.
From C to
Bunch
D.
of it.
Sections C and D have bold typing,
Yeah.
And 110701.
not in the packet, no.
I'm looking at the same thing, so.
Yeah, so how do we
I
get
mean,
to what you're
it's-
looking at?
Is that already there? Is that what you mean? C and D are already there?
No.
That's what she's implying.
No, Mr. Chairman, there is a section under 1107,
Oh, one.
110701, staff is proposing to add section C and D.
That's what we're talking about.
But those sections will only apply
If it's a
to
circus.
1107.03C.
How am I supposed to know that if I'm reading through the zoning ordinance? Okay, let me go to 1107.
It's fine. It's a little confusing because I also thought that we're adding two more requirements, C
Okay,
and D,
110703.
to 11701,
Yes,
which is temporary permits. Not,
I'm sorry, I was confused also. Yes,
That
the
is
intent
not
is to add
which was,
a new section to 1107.01.
That's right.
Two new sections.
that's right, C and D.
C and D.
That's right.
But those two sections will apply to only 1107.03C.
Where
It doesn't
do you
say
see
that.
Right here, it
It
says a temporary
says-
use permit pursuant to
What page you on?
1107.03C shall only be approved provided that.
What page are you on?
It's on,
Two of
it's
the
in
memorandum.
the highlighted on D,
Right there. What
right at the
page?
very beginning, first
315.
sentence.
315.
11703, the use buildings, structure, shall be established, maintained to provide minimum, we don't
Look
have
at
that.
D, and the
Look at
very
D.
first sentence, it says
Pursuant to
110703C.
1107.03C.
All right, it says temporary use permit pursuant to 110703. Right here, right there. Go up.
Yeah.
Go low.
Yeah.
There you go. It says temporary use permit pursuant to 110703C. That's where it's getting stuck. Because it's under 1103C1, but this one only applies to 03C.
How could you not see that? It's right there.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
You're a confused
Now I
individual.
get it.
Let's move on. You're a confused
Monday.
individual.
Wow.
All right, having finished that discussion about carnivals and, those such events, can we move on to everybody?
Yeah, there it is.
So C is the only one that applies to O1?
To D.
C. C applies to 110701, right?
I get it.
1107-01, right? Temporary.
Yes.
C will apply to it. It will apply, which is the planning director shall obtain comments from agricultural materials that director believes could be affected. That one applies to a temporary use permit, right?
All
The
temporary
other
use
stuff
permits.
applies to a carnival, things like that.
D
Yes.
applies to circuses, carnivals, and.
Why don't we put that right
transient-
under circuses, carnivals, and et cetera? so
Because
it's
it
not
does
so
say that,
confusing?
11703 is that. That's
Yeah,
what.
but if
It's
I'm an
already in.
average Joe,
You
this
are
isn't my
an
first
average
time reading, one of these
I-
things.
Look,
and
I got
didn't
caught
get
in
it
the same
right.
thing. I got caught in the same thing. I mean, I looked at it, and when I looked at it, it was under 110701, and I didn't pay attention to the fact that it applied only to
They've
something.
been on vacation.
I've been on vacation, so the sun had some impact, but,
I saw the same sign.
yeah,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
no.
20 years, Maggie,
Really?
sorry.
I think it was other than sun.
All right. So why isn't it on 110703? Why isn't this whole thing in that section?
Mr. Chairman, staff are usually the ones that interpret the zoning ordinance and apply the zoning ordinance and provide the requirements to the general public when they inquire about these requirements. However,
but-
if the board wishes to make it clearer, staff can reword the section to state, instead of saying a temporary use permit pursuant to 1107.03C, the wording could be changed to circuses, carnivals, and similar transient amusement enterprises, subject to not more than 30 days, the way it's currently worded, shall submit a written plan that addresses the following.
All right,
I
fine.
move that amended
Yeah.
to this.
All right, okay,
I
so we're
agree.
gonna approve it with
Thank
that
you.
amendment, I think, if we go
Yes.
through with it. All right? What else is there controversial about this, other than that?
That was one of the-
Anybody in the public wants to make a comment? I don't want, anyone to complain later they didn't get a chance. Anybody going once? Anybody going twice?
Right.
Anybody gone, right? Okay, fine. So,
Mr. Chairman, I would have one more comment.
would you go ahead?
Maggie, I'd just like to make it clear, I'm sure others in the
Clear
board
to
can
me.
disagree, but I'm pretty sure that we would like to hear from you specifically if all of a sudden there's just denials after denials, or you know of a problem that this policy is creating.
Yeah.
Okay?
I agree.
You
Thank
would
you.
be on the front lines of knowing that. We'd like to
Yeah.
hear if there's an issue.
And I think it's pretty clear that what we're talking about was giving you the authority to deal with agricultural issues, military issues, and those issues that to us affect, those entities.
Livelihood,
Right,
people's
and
livelihoods.
that should have included, like, irrigation districts and those people who may be impacted negatively by an event of the kind. And then that last D, I think, threw us off. It threw me off. I thought it applied to any temporary permits. And so that's why all these arguments that took place, 10 minutes ago, I've forgotten. And you just make sure that section is well listed as to applying only to carnivals and those type of events, and that would be fine, right?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for adding to
It's
the
okay.
confusion.
No. Don't apologize. I'm used to it,
Well, it was
Okay.
a good explanation, and now we know, so,
Okay, so is that the one? Is that the first one?
yes.
Okay, so I hear a motion to approve those changes.
Mr. Chairman, this would be a motion to return the item to
Yeah.
the Planning and Zoning
I know.
Commission.
So.
With that amended language? or-
So moved.
It's got to go through the process again then?
For
To
planning and zoning?
zoning, and then to us for final approval.
Mr. Chairman, it would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission to initiate an amendment to the zoning ordinance, and then back to you for a public hearing on the text amendment.
Can we skip them? No, I'm just kidding. All right, so there's a
So
motion
moved.
here to send it back to planning and zoning for final discussion to be brought to the Board of Supervisors for final,
The motion was to approve that language.
to approve the language to go back to the
I
planning and
approve,
zoning.
yeah. I
Approve
move
the
to approve
recommended
that language.
Is there a second?
That
To
should
recommend?
I'll second.
All right, look, there was a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Pick and choose, Desiree, which one is which,
Yeah,
okay?
choose whichever one.
And any more discussion on the item? No discussion. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
This is a public work session, but I'm allowing the public to comment. So if you have a comment to make sure you make it. 2, development services, discussion feedback on final development, Department of Development Service comprehensive plan, permitting and enforcement policy, including comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, tag team.
Uh-oh. Documents coming. If it's not an inch thick, I don't want to see it.
Oh,
Just kidding. Fluff it up, fluff it up.
Thank you. Mhm.
And this is also part of that overall discussion we've had, right, Craig? Where we discussed the pros and cons and the permitting process and how we're not gonna go after people who wanna do the right thing because of whatever. We had this
Yes,
long and lengthy
yeah.
discussion, right? And
They
this
can
is
get a
reflective
permit
of that
on
discussion,
something
correct?
new
It's
without
reflective of that, plus the comments we received from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
We didn't receive recommendations from them because they didn't take an action, but we received a number of comments from different people in attendance at that. I wanted to give you a paper copy so it's a little bit easier to follow through with as we go over those. If you turn to page 2, under definitions number 2, in red, there is a comment requesting us to remove commercial, industrial, and multifamily. On our previous discussion at the work session, it was discussed that we were interested in single-family residences for secondary owner relief. This expands it to include commercial, industrial, and multifamily residential. Staff is not recommending that, and I think we discussed that pretty thoroughly at the last. The board
No, we don't
wasn't
want
in
to get
support
into
of
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, they struck it out. And I agree, and that's just, again, we're overreaching. We started with an issue and now we're getting into, well, complex situation.
Well, I think it's overreach.
Yeah, it is. So just keep it out. That's what they're,
No.
I know, they're saying no. The change is not recommended by employees, but you did strike it out, right? Because of the planning and
I
zoning
brought to you what the comment would do. These are, the strikeout is not recommended by staff, but I wanted to make every effort to get the comments that were made before you.
If I may?
Sure.
I want to clarify, then this strikeout was not approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission?
It was.
They were just all comments we received. They didn't take any action.
They didn't, okay, so this strike through doesn't represent the current text. It's only the suggestion. And the board would have to take an action today to approve the strike through.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Want to be clear, okay.
And staff's position on this is, on a single-family residence, the owner is dealing with the impacts of the mistakes that they're making, potentially. An employee or customer coming into a business or a tenant of a multifamily residential, there's an assumption that they're living or going to a place that is safe, and that may not be clear without if there's a violation on it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm not
If
in
it's a-
favor of the strike through.
You're not in favor
No.
of striking?
I agree with staff, that's a different animal.
I agree.
Where we
Because-
started here is leave people alone in their homes, right?
Mhm.
That was the whole thing.
Now we're looking at commercial and industrial.
But now we're putting a lot of people in jeopardy and,
Well,
or possibly.
Potentially could be,
Yeah,
and we're not gonna,
possibly,
I
yeah,
don't approve of that. I think it's a different ballgame if you're commercial.
yeah, I agree.
All right, so, all right.
Okay.
Fine
move
with
on.
that. Next one, 2C, this is a staff recommendation. In our discussions, the last one, there's some confusion about what we meant by a violation case. I've added the words hearing officer declared violation case to add clarity to that.
It's a formal violation.
Right.
Do you
It
need
happened
action
through the
from
board.
us to insert that, or?
No.
No, it's just
Okay.
comment.
Good.
We move on to page 6.
On page 5, same thing, clarification for state statute.
Okay, now explain that again to me. Legal counsel says that this is contrary to state law. So what's contrary to state law is to request people to give us their name and address and so forth when they file a complaint. Is that what's against state law? To put that requirement on the books? Or to,
You talking about this one?
No, we're
I'm
on
talking
5.
six.
We're not on 6 yet.
Oh, we're not on 6 yet?
No, we're on 5.
You said 6.
You had said 6.
You said 6.
Well, I said 6, and I'm the chair, so.
Right.
No,
You
no,
said
no,
6.
5. I'm just
5
kidding.
is
But I'm
where
We'll
fine,
get
I
to-
just
we'll get to
wanted to, in
6, we'll get to
passing,
6.
just point it out.
Yeah.
If I say 6, it's gotta be 5.
Clarification there. So,
Okay.
but I'm fine moving on to 6. And so on 6, there's a couple of problems with not allowing anonymous complaints. And I think the discussion we had at the previous work session was that we would continue to work to have a change in state statute that would allow us to record
Yes.
people's names, but hold them.
So that's what's not allowed.
Mr.
Understood.
Chair and
Sure.
Craig, could
Supervisor.
this be one of the proposals that we submit to CSA as
could
part, as a possible
I'll
change
probably
in
search it.
the state legislature, so that we could require people to state their names, but those people's names would be held in private and not be allowed to be given out to the public, so that staff has the names, but
Yeah.
the public
I
doesn't
don't-
get the name, so we're not putting anybody in jeopardy.
That's gonna be challenged at some particular
That
point
won't
in
even go
time.
to committee hearing.
Yeah. No, that's gonna be challenged at some particular point in time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there
Okay.
might be, it's like facing
I mean,
your
we could bring
accusers
it
type
to
of thing.
CSA.
That's a legal.
I'd like to bring it to CSA just to,
I want the chicken,
I'm not chicken.
I want the
Right.
chicken man to, go through the agricultural, exemption again.
Oh, okay.
But,
Ed is,
Mr. Chairman, that's certainly something that you could request a change to the public records law to make,
just for this little section for us?
right, and then they could analyze whether or not that would withstand legal muster and
Let me ask you a
why
question.
don't we
That's
ask,
good
why don't we
policy.
ask CSA to research it first?
What purpose was
Yeah.
that, sir? I mean, if you can't disclose the name, what is the purpose of collecting the name?
It's making
And
sure
all it
that
does
people,
is-
for example, you may have a serial complainer that goes around, just complaining about everybody, all their neighbors and, filing claim, because, nobody knows who he is, right? You could do it 20
Don't have
times.
anything better to do.
So if you have the name of the people that of the person that complains, you can determine if this is a nuisance type situation just by, by
A lot
who
of this
does
is taken care of by the process that we use when we confirm complaints. We receive the complaint anonymously, but our deputy zoning inspectors go out and actually determine if there's a violation
Right.
that
Oh,
has
so we have
merit.
staff that take care
Yes.
of this, so we don't need to worry about whether they're anonymous or not, correct?
And then the staff has seen the violation. The staff is there at the hearing to say, this is what I saw. And we feel that this is in violation of these sections.
Right.
Okay,
Right. I mean, we can take.
We do
it.
have sort of checks and balances on that already.
so you have, within the office, you have checks and balances.
An example of this is, or a similar thing in traffic is the police receive a phone call about somebody weaving in traffic. It's not that phone call that cites them for drunk driving or erratic driving. It's the patrolman that comes up behind them, sees them doing it, that they're sided with.
Oh, got it, okay.
Well, yeah,
So we
there's some
can just
exceptions to
leave this
that.
out,
I mean, but
right?
technically that's not right, but
Very
not.
similar.
Yeah, unless you can stop and that person cites them.
And we can go back
Citizen.
to the earlier discussions. Do we have a problem?
Are we fixing a
Serial
problem or are we
complainers,
creating a?
I mean, there's not a problem.
Staff is not having a problem. There was comment about people having the ability to face their accuser, the ability and questions about if they're anonymous.
Could you really do that?
Why can't I go and complain about that person that is doing this? Because if they have the same problem, you're not going after them.
Well, I guess you can.
Yeah, you can.
Depending on the limitation that we have. The direction for us not to go after people except for normal course of business and so on puts a limitation on what we can look at there.
Let's just, let's just say that there is no particular problem we're trying to resolve here.
We
There
don't.
is no, the staff doesn't feel that there's a problem with anything like
doesn't
that,
go any
and we're
farther
trying
than
to
that.
avoid a problem that doesn't exist right now.
Right. It's not going to go
And
to the
challenging it,
legislature.
so.
Oh, no, it won't. The legislature won't approve
No,
it.
no,
but,
this is
I
an
mean,
open, in the sake of clarity, I don't think that I think that the momentum is the opposite way. You know, so I don't, you know, I mean, public records, I mean, if we're trying to keep people's names off the public record, we're going against the wave. The wave is for clarity, the wave is for more exposure. So I don't think that's a fight that we want to take on
right now.
right now.
So you're not going to change it to cannot, it will be can?
No, it will can.
Can.
Yeah, it will be can. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Farther down,
Further?
yeah, under public complaints, another comment, when a site visit is made, staff should look at nearby properties.
Mhm.
I don't want to go back to zoning police.
Maggie pointed out another item on the anonymous. The subcommittee had concern that staff would file things as anonymous to cover.
Yeah, we read that comment.
So
Yeah,
we just want to make sure that was out there as well.
yeah, they're putting a job at jeopardy to do that. I mean,
But yes, the next one, there's discussion about
looking at the site.
the neighborhood consideration and so forth. We've done it in the past, but we recognize the board's position.
Yeah, well, we'd rather have it come from the neighbors instead of coming from staff. And I think if the problem is so prevalent, somebody needs to step up and say so. I mean, and this makes the staff sort of like the zoning police or something, you know, you're looking at, you know, other things. And we were trying to avoid that, at least the perception that that's what you do. You know, if the neighbor, sure, if the neighbor has a problem, then they need to bring it to the planning zone, I mean, to the development staff.
You get anonymous complaint, you go out and talk to that person where the anonymous complaint is made. That person says, well, everybody on the block has it, this person and this person and this person. Then you go out and look at those as well, correct?
In that situation, we could, because that person that we talked to said, we have a problem with them, we have a problem with them, we have a problem with them.
Yeah, yeah.
We would take that's complaint.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we receive, no, I don't want to say anything about my other neighbors because I don't want to cause friction in the neighborhood. We haven't received the complaint.
Okay,
And
I
that's where
see.
we would have the distinction there.
Okay.
And that's what we do today.
And that is how we handle it. Okay, I don't want to change that either. Okay.
All right.
Moving on to 7.
I have one question or
One
a
comment?
comment, yeah. You know, and I think this has happened several times. If in a neighborhood, there's been something there that if it's not in compliance or anything, but it's been there for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden a neighbor argues or their son's kids got in a fight, someone calls. How do you handle that? I mean, because it's been there nobody has complained. So how is that handled?
That would be something that we'd look for, would be good to bring up the discussion on how you would like us to treat those, because you're going to get the comments of, I turn this in and they're not doing anything about it. And so we've been taking this is written right now, that if we receive a complaint, we're going to
Do something
enforce
about
it. Because we have to look at their interest as well as the person that has the mess.
I think that's kind of the next page, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of.
And so
See, if you look at the 5 years.
I would welcome the discussion on what you want us to do with that.
That's smart.
Well,
If it's been there for 20 years, to me, it doesn't mean it isn't wrong. I mean, it's just been there for a long time. I mean, it's sometimes that's what it's going to take to fix something that's been there for a long time, and things change. You know, the neighborhood may be changing. And 20 years ago, it wasn't so offensive, and it's now a danger to society and to the health and welfare of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's just not, I mean, the fact that something is wrong now, as opposed to it wasn't wrong 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or last week, doesn't change the fact that it's wrong now. I think that in my particular case, I'd say that times change and therefore situations cannot remain the same. I mean, oh, well, maybe the possible exception of somebody that uses a roadway or whatever, that there is some sort of statute that says that if you allow them to use it for some time, then it becomes public. With very few exceptions, if a complaint is made, regardless of whether a violation existed for 20 years and nobody made a complaint, I think that you need to process that as a regular complaint and then deal with it that way. If it isn't,
Well, I mean, by doing that, and also then why can't a county employee, by looking at something that's unsafe, can bring it forward and cite them?
Because
we're talking about two different
Yeah, we're
levels
talking
here.
about
One is the condition just doesn't meet a zoning requirement. We then have the safety items. The safety items, staff still keeps those. As they see something that is hazardous, we would proceed against those because of the safety issue.
For example, if you see somebody that has a pool, small kiddie pool, that's like, 18 inches high or 20 inches high, you have to, as a county person, do you have to go in and tell them you can't have that, you need to fence it? That's a safety issue.
We would have to see it first.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, you've seen it, right? Otherwise, how could you know? But if you see it?
I think we would have, if it was deemed a health and safety.
Well, that's what I mean. It's deemed a health and safety the moment you have it without fencing around it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Pat Headington, Building and Fire Code official. We approach those on a complaint basis. Speaking for myself and all of those instances that I've been involved with, Supervisor Porches, what I try and do first is look at all of the resources we have available, what documentation we have, our permit files. I will research assessor's records going back to certain dates and trying to figure out, and along with some written permit information that we have that's very limited. But at the end of the day, the way I've always approached these is the county has the burden of proof as to whether or not a structure either doesn't exist if we're going to carry a violation forward or to nullify it. So, but on a complaint basis, yes, we look at those, we look at the code, we look at the safety hazard. We have in the property maintenance code, which I pulled out, we don't have that officially adopted within Yuma County. I have addressed and pulled out certain criteria that are recognized as unsafe conditions. And we've got those drafted in policy that will be moving forward as part of this. And those can be addressed pretty much at any time staff finds or believes there is an unsafe condition on the property, as defined within that policy.
Okay. So the pool.
A pool more than 18 inches deep, one requires a permit and two would require fencing.
Above ground, right?
Above ground or below grade.
Okay. So if you see one, you cite one? Or you advise the owner?
Under this policy here, what staff will be doing is staff will be notifying me of the pool. And the first thing we're going to do before we issue a notice of violation is do our research and find out if we have a permit. So I don't want to issue a notice of violation if an owner's obtained a permit. If we have a permit or if we have one issued, no, we're going to move on and we'll solve it through the permitting process. If they don't have a permit, then yes, we could and would issue a violation.
Okay.
So if going back to the situation you gave of saying that there's not a fence there, if the permit was issued, we'd need to check in to see why isn't the fence there and go through that.
Obviously, that homeowner is going to knock it down as soon as he finds out he needs a permit or, a fence around it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of options that they have to.
Okay, move on from the pool issue.
So
that was so common because it's hot. And people think, okay, well, I'm just going to go to Walmart and buy one of those pools and put it in my house. That's it. I mean, they're not thinking I need a permit. Or, this is like the shade issue, which I don't want to bring out too much again, but it's the same thing. People assume that because they can buy it for $150. They don't need a $30 or $60 permit. They don't need to fence it. I did it once.
And
I got cited.
there's
I remember. I didn't do it again.
there's on the national level pushes for sellers of things that require permits to post that they need a permit. Has not gained a lot of traction in the industry.
Of course not.
So.
Like in
All
the
right,
direction.
so where are we now?
Yeah.
Time limitation on cases.
Time limitations on initializing cases. We received comment that it would be nice if there was a statute of limitation on some of these violations, that there wasn't just the opportunity for something to stay out there and just waiting for when we wanted to enforce it. And so this would place some restriction on it that once we've either received a complaint or otherwise have the ability to enforce it based off this policy, and that we've taken the ability for their voluntary compliance to elapse, we would limit it to 5 years after those two criteria have been met. And within that, I would look at it that if we knew about it, had taken the opportunity to do it, and we still had not proceeded to the hearing officer with it, 5 years is a reasonable amount of time to say we should have done something by then. This would not apply to if that work was needed for a new permit. They need to permit all of it, because then they're impacted by it. But we wouldn't be taking it to the hearing officer on them. And we can support it worded in that way.
Are they permanently off the hook then?
No.
Or do you just reinitiate?
They wouldn't be subject to a hearing, the hearing officer process, but it would stay in their file, and it would need to be corrected when they did improvement that impacted that
particular situation. All right. It's sort of like splitting the baby solution. It's like splitting the baby. We're not going one way or another. We're just simply making sure that the violation remains as part of the record. We're not going after the person to fix it.
Right, because
But
you had 5
if he
years.
wants to do something with that particular structure, he would have to fix it, right? Okay, all right.
And then down on
Splitting the baby.
bottom half of 7, there's a request that what we've identified for items that the staff has identified, but isn't going to be moving forward as a violation, that we send them a courtesy notification to the owner. So we've notified them that they have a violation, and we'd put that in the file. If their file were to be requested, it would be made available to the people. What was requested was for the alleged violator to record a disclosure of violation and assumption of liability.
It's a buyer beware type of situation. You want to put it in the record so that somebody else, when they buy it, they know that there is a violation that accompanies the property that has been identified by the county. So that a person that buys it knows that either he fixes it, or he would have that on file.
What, if I may?
Sure.
What, for lack of a better term, coerces the individual into filing this paperwork with the recorder?
Yeah.
That's why staff isn't recommending it.
They're not.
It's because
difficult to monitor.
You don't,
Can't enforce
I don't
it.
have a mechanism to enforce it without taking it to court.
And you don't have a mechanism to make that recordation yourself?
I would be, I can't.
You can't.
They're asking for a disclosure violation and assumption of liability. I can't.
The assumption of liability is an
assume
issue.
the liability for them.
No.
The
But
assumption.
you can't make any sort of filing with the recorder that goes,
With the
that the
title.
title company would find when they
Did
did
a
their
title
due
search.
diligence?
Legal.
I thought we said there was a way to do that.
Mr. Chairman, That would just be a bad idea. I mean, you could obviously go record something on your neighbor's property and you'd open yourself up to,
But this is the county.
to a lawsuit. And same thing, the county, going around recording things on people's property based on our opinion that there's a violation.
Oh, okay, I get it. We do it when we do zonings and things like that. We record aviation statements, we record all the stuff. But you feel uncomfortable about recording something that is going to accompany a property without basically the owner's approval.
Knowledge.
Because when they go through a rezoning, they're asking for something from us.
Not only the owner's approval, but there isn't any, it would be staff's interpretation that there's a violation here. It has not gone to a hearing officer even to say that, to confirm that it's a violation.
I see. Well, I can see the arguments about, hey, look, this could be misused, or this could be abused. You know, if a county gets into a mode, a frame of mind where, you know, you want to put all these things in the record, we get the opposite side, right? We get people complaining, look, we didn't know, the title company didn't tell us, and there's nothing on the record. If the county knew about it, why didn't they let us know? Kind of thing, right? So we're trying to figure out a way to walk down this path. The easiest way for us was to simply have the county record a violation of record in something that went through the process. And now we're asking you not to take on a process. So we're sort of like defeating the purpose at the end here.
We are seeing more realtors coming in and asking for our files before they proceed.
So if there is a violation,
They can find out.
You're gonna file it in
In
your
your,
file.
it will be in your records, but you just can't put it in their record. Right?
That would be
Okay,
the second
that
bullet
would-
point then, where
yeah.
that would take place, right?
Mr. Chair, are lenders doing that as well?
The realtors are doing it because the lenders are asking for it.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
Right, so what's the last one?
Let's
not move along.
Page 8, lack of a permit in itself is not a violation. This is very problematic for us because all somebody has to say is, me not having a permit isn't a violation, and we can't do anything for permitting. Because we can go down the street, see somebody putting up a building. If not having a permit itself is not a violation, how do we stop them? And so we feel that this just goes too far on the language.
I don't know if that was the intent of that. Maybe that's what the outcome.
That would be the outcome.
you're
That
looking
would
at
be
it.
the outcome,
But the
yeah.
intent obviously wasn't that we would, you know, just determine that a lack of a permit is not itself a violation, because a lack of a permit is a violation in most cases. Maybe we need to be a little more specific about
There
what
was
we're
a
talking
date
about.
specific mention during the discussion
Well, the
because of
the 1998.
98.
And we have gone over that if it's determined that a structure went up before 1998, that we would need to see that the county's records have indication that it was built without a permit.
You can't. How would you?
You can. Because.
Back in 1998?
Yeah, we can. Because we have records that go back into the 1970s. But we can see site plans that they show an improvement with a note on it, not part of work. We then go back later and it shows as part of the work. We see the valuation calculations where it specifies a specific type of use. And so there's indications in our records that there wasn't a structure permitted. And so we do have the ability to do that.
Well, in most cases. In most cases.
Right.
In some cases.
But we go prior to 98, we're putting the onus more on the county for that than the applicant.
I know, but that's not necessarily so bad, because the applicant may not be the same one to begin with. So, you know, we couldn't ask the property owner today, you know, what happened in 1997 with your property? I don't know about it in 2017. So that's what we wanted to get to, right? We wanted to get to a point where there's responsibility. There should be responsibility on a homeowner. But if we're not filing anything, if we're not asking anyone to do anything other than voluntarily check the records for a realtor, for example, then we're really not doing much. We're just simply saying, well, we'll deal with it in a case-by-case basis, which is what we're doing right now. And we did, I'd like to have said, look, if it goes before 1998 or before a specific date, I mean, that's very difficult. Only the county, well, not only the county, but I would say the county has a better chance than the homeowner, if it's not the same original homeowner, to find out what was going on with the property in 1998, before 1998, because you have records. So picking a date was really difficult because what's fair and what's not.
The reason why 1998 came out is that's when our current permit software came into place. And
we have better records since then.
And that provides a much better trail there. But I think the intent of lack of a permit in itself not being a violation is covered by the changes that we've made throughout the document. Because this deals with any sort of zoning violation, including whether they have a permit or not. So
It's a statute that if you don't have a permit, it is a violation? Is that the position of legal?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
No matter when, no matter whether you're the first owner, the second owner, or the third owner. If you don't have a permit, you're in violation.
As far as there is an exception for the building permit you're just getting to notify the assessor of a change in valuation. That's the ARS 11321. But as far as the building permit required by the zoning ordinance or by the adopted building code, there would be no statute of limitation. It would go back to when it was adopted.
Well, then that's what the problem is sometimes. And I think that the legislature tried to address it by having the new property owner not be responsible for that. If it's good faith, I suppose. I mean, in some ways, if he didn't have a way of knowing that this was permitted or not, you're buying a house, supposedly you're buying title insurance, you're buying a certain amount of safety and security. You may have to go back to the title insurance company if they sold you the property through an escrow process. But if it was a sale between two homeowners themselves, what is there requiring the prior homeowner to tell you this was not permitted or something? Right. So that's where we got into last time, and I think that's what drives a lot of this process about, look, it's a lack of permit in itself a violation, and that's the crux of the question. And what you're saying is that this kind of statement goes against statute in that respect. And what we're saying is, look, what I'm saying is, look, there has to be a point here where we sort of get to an understanding that this may not be a bad faith decision, right? We're saying, you're not really going out there and committing a violation if you don't really know. You're not committing a violation. I mean, intent plays a part as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think that's what the previous page does.
Yeah, well.
But if you look at the qualifications we look at for what we would do before moving forward with citing for a violation.
Yeah, the future.
Lack of a permit.
It works with the future, what you said.
We've got the county we will look at the county documents. We will look at whatever records the applicant or contractor can provide. We will look at the quality of the construction and see if it's consistent with having had a permit. And if it's pre-1998, then we would need to see that the county records indicate that a permit wasn't there. So, we're not just going to look at it and say,
this is it.
This is it.
And the last one, we will let the county board of supervisors know when they decide against something and you decide to go the other way. But you're not going to put that in there, but I hope you understand that's part of the problem. Right? Okay. Any comments on this? No? The last one.
And then the last one on page 9.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I overwrote some of the previous wording here. We had that we would notify the board before making an appeal to Superior Court, and we've changed that to the board direction will be sought before appeal is made to Superior Court.
Even better.
Wow. So,
okay.
That work?
Yeah, works for me.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Craig, is there any limit on the hearing officer on how long he can keep giving extensions to violations?
Be fixed.
I don't think so.
I think,
Are you talking about your hoarding thing again?
Well, there's several different ones.
Yeah.
I've been over a year, we've been trying to get them cleaned up, and every time we turn around, they keep getting an extension.
didn't you hear Supervisor Borges said it was 20 years in the making?
Yeah, I know.
So how can we
But,
fix it in 1 year? No.
Anyway,
I mean,
like I said,
it's a real
it seems to
question.
go on some cases.
We'll need to bring forward changes to the zoning ordinance to address anything like that for
Process.
continuances.
It's a process.
Well, at some point, can't you take it to court?
You do.
After extension, it can't.
Well, you then make a
The planning
decision.
director can then say, this is enough, we're going to
Right.
court, right?
Sometimes you want to, typically they will ask for an extension. The zoning, I'm sorry, hearing officer grants those.
Most of the time.
Well, I'm just saying though, there's times though where I know there's a couple of things out in the foothills where they've granted 6 months extensions to fix a problem, which is, it's a zoning issue. It's not a problem, the land's not zoned for what's there, and nothing's been done.
And so, that's actually a little bit off.
Well, the
topic,
question is there a way to limit the number of extension a person can get to fix a violation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or in other words, make a decision, right? A final decision. Is there maybe we should say, well, look, you have 12 months maximum or something that,
Or you can give up to
direction
3
to-
extensions.
It just needs to be added into
Well,
the
no,
zoning
because if you can
ordinance.
give 3 extensions, you can give 6-month extensions and it goes all for, you can give a
Yeah.
12-month extension.
Well, I mean, but limit the length
The
of the
time,
extension.
the time. Well, that's an issue you guys need to take a look at. I mean, because our feeling is if there is a violation and it needs to be fixed, part of fixing the problem is to have it done in a timely manner. If it's a violation and a person can ask for an extension and an extension will be almost automatically given, then it should be said that, look, you get 2 automatic extensions, and when people realize they're gonna get 2 automatic extensions, there's no real hurry to fix the problem.
Yeah, they just
So,
keep dragging it
yeah.
out. Because
Try
the
to-
one property, I go by there every day and there's no change whatsoever. Actually, it's gotten worse. But they know there's no bite or no teeth in what we're trying to get them to fix. Because they know they can just keep getting extension after extension and just drag it out. And then, we don't want to get to the point where we're just putting it all onto the county attorney's office to do abatement on them,
But we don't take it to abatement until after.
Well,
the
is there-
hearing
No, but I'm
officer.
just saying though,
I guess Supervisor Simmons, the key question is there a way to limit the number of extensions or the time that a person can have to fix a problem?
Put that limit in the zoning
Exactly.
ordinance.
It says, if your violation is deemed to be a violation, you have 6 to 12, maximum of so many times. The problem with doing that, again, is that it implies that you can take that long to do it. And that's really why I think you want to avoid saying that you can get an extension because, and then you leave that to the hearing officer, then the hearing officer should get direction. Maybe from the director or from you saying that, look, we don't want any violation to go above a certain amount of time to fix, especially if it's a safety and health situation.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure, sorry.
Is that something, Craig, that you could just make as a part of your internal policy? We'll only go so long?
No, because Maggie is essentially the prosecutor of the cases to the hearing officer.
Right.
That is right.
And my staff provides support for them, but they're board appointees.
Mhm.
They're independent of our department. And Maggie can make the request.
But they can do what they
for it
want.
not to be continued.
Okay.
But we can't
Mandate.
it.
Yeah, that's a good explanation, thank you.
Right.
But at some point, and she can make the determination, too much.
Too
and
much
we're gonna
time?
move this on, right?
I don't know the answer to that.
Ed?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, from what I've observed, the zoning inspector has on a case-by-case said, we want to close this case and allow the fine to stand. I've also seen a lot of cases where the hearing officers consider the health situation of the violator, is how much money he's got, maybe he's a winter visitor, and taking those into account and giving extensions. So
It's an individual case by case basis.
I think that
It's like a judge.
if you say you only get 6 months, you only get 1 year, whatever you do, you're going to take away discretion from a hearing officer. So.
Yeah, I guess, but my question was, at some point, doesn't the planning director
hearing
have the
officer,
option to say,
really an asking.
it's been too long,
They're
you know,
independent, but
getting pressure,
reappoint them.
Yeah.
we're going to appeal now to Superior Court instead of back to the hearing officer?
What they've done is they've asked the hearing officer to close the case, that this person has not made any progress. And from what I've observed, the hearing officer has closed the case.
And then they
It
appeal
goes to
to the court?
That's where the zoning inspector has an option of requesting an abatement from our office. I understand now they're going to come to you and see what direction you want to take.
It goes to you, to us, and then.
Actually, it'll come to you probably.
I just know there's some cases where, you know, they're cited, but they continue to, you know,
Yeah, they
the clutter
continue.
continues.
It looks like the game in the
There's
system.
no issue, there's no attempt to clear it out.
They pay the fine.
Pay the fine and move on.
A
Yeah,
point
but
to,
that's not fixing the problem.
that was the point I wanted to make on this. Just because they're found in violation by the hearing officer does not resolve the actual violation. It just finds it in violation and potentially
process.
levies a civil sanction. But
But
that in
after they-
itself does not clean it up.
After they pay the civil sanction, then it just goes away?
They don't have to
Until
do
it's-
anything?
Until it is complained again, then we send it back through the hearing officer process again.
Yeah, see, that's.
At that point
That's the
is
problem.
where the abatement comes in and why we've been taking more of them to abatement.
That's the problem we need to fix, where, you know, okay, they come in, they pay their fine or whatever, or, you know, he drops, the case is done, but nothing's been changed.
Yeah.
There's still
I
no.
think we're moving away from
correction.
where we started.
But anyway, that's something we need to look at.
Yeah, it's a little bit off the
We-
subject, but
We have been taking more to abatement.
Have you?
Mr. Sellers? Any questions?
No.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Craig.
much. Do you need a motion here?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. You think you got enough direction?
Know
just
where
from
we're
the
at.
discussion? Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I think that was it. Do you want to say anything, Mr. Holden?
I'll be brief.
Well, that's not, every attorney says that, but, then again,
Brief is relative.
brief is
Yeah,
relevant.
brief is relevant.
No, just kidding. Go
Barry
ahead.
Olson, 101 East Second Street. As you're aware, I was a member of the subcommittee. Just a couple of points. I know Danny Bryant sent an email last night to the board that set forth a number of key points, but on the statute of limitations, we're always talking about what state statute provides, but on zoning violations, the comparison on a zoning violation is to Arizona's misdemeanor statutes. The misdemeanor statute has a 1-year statute of limitations. So from the subcommittee standpoint, to be consistent with Arizona law, from the discovery of a zoning violation by the county, we feel that it should be a 1-year statute of limitation, not 5 years, given the reference to the misdemeanor statute. And then the other issue about disclosures that came up that the board had discussion with, I agree with staff that requiring a landowner to record a disclosure is going to be problematic. I think that's more of between a seller and a buyer, the realtors being more experienced. I do agree that we do seem to be seeing more experienced realtors checking with the county and getting the proper documentation filled out. The last comment I want to make is relative to, and I agree with staff to some extent, when there's a violation, because I had this one come up all the time, and I just want to express my personal views that when someone has a zoning violation on them, but the whole neighborhood seems to have the same issue, in other words, when someone's acting like the Joneses and the Joneses have the same problem, then why is it just me? I have that come up all the time, and the question is why didn't staff cite these other folks? Sometimes they just don't know enough to tell staff, but I do feel if staff goes out to a neighborhood, that staff should have the deference to, if they see the same issue, to look at the whole neighborhood as a whole and to analyze the whole neighborhood, because I think that has some bearing as to the particular case, as to whether or not it's just them or it's the whole neighborhood. Because you don't know how many complaints I get where someone comes in and they take a picture of their neighbors, but they're concerned about reporting on their neighbor. They think the county should have to enforce that. And on that, you know, we always talk about the county's liability. Well, if the county goes out and sees that the whole neighborhood has a problem, but someone doesn't want to report it because they're afraid of getting an issue with their neighbor, doesn't the county have liability for that? I mean, I've always argued they don't, but staff's always said, well, we're concerned about our liability. So it's the flip side of the coin. It's either you have it or you don't.
Yeah.
But those are the only comments I wanted to make.
Well, thank you, Mr. Olson, and I appreciate all the work you guys put out there. I mean, Danny, yourself, and all the members of the team. I know that you understand that the purpose we even have that team and that we take on these discussions is we certainly try and improve the kind of service we give, not just to developers or to residents, but to everybody in general, including attorneys.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, too, on the timeframe. I mean, could we go, the Planning and Zone Commission won 1 year, and we suggested 5. Can we split the difference and do 3?
Well, because I think that when you get to a misdemeanor citing, you're talking about a criminal situation almost all the time. And that is not really what we're looking at this particular time. 1, it seems to be too little, and 5 may be too long, but.
With the conditions we have on there, that we have to be aware of it, and that we've exhausted the voluntary process at that point, I'd be fine with 1.
With what?
With 1?
1.
Wow.
Because at that point, we'd be able to be aware of what's going on. We've been able to work with them as long as we can. So we're not going to have the pressure of, we're working with you.
Until a long time.
And drop off and then have a limited amount of time in there.
Right.
If we, from the point of, we absolutely know about it, we need to be able to consider that we're starting the process by working with them.
I get it.
And then at that point.
In other words, you'll be working with them for a long time before you get to that point.
Potentially.
5 years is a long time. Yeah.
But, so that's where we'd be.
Let me
fine with
ask
1 year.
attorney, which is not a good idea most of the time, but legal. What is it? Is the time frame any different? Is it statute driven? Is it a choice that we can make?
Well, the example, the 1 year statute of limitation, if somebody had, say a violation was a junk in the front yard and they cleaned it up, we couldn't cite them a year after that. So that applies right now. But if they have junk in their front yard and it's been there for 5 years and a neighbor finally moves in and complains, that violation is still existing. So we could move on that. So these statute of limitations do apply. But
Anyway.
Generally, my experience is that the zoning staff has only gone after current violations, not violations that did exist, that somebody wants to have this person penalized with a fine.
So at short time, it's not any, it wouldn't make that much difference.
Well, what we're talking about is actually taking action. You knew about it, but didn't take action for a year. Now it's.
And as far as that, there's been cases, I believe it was somebody had horses or something like that was kind of smelly, but there was no neighbors that had a problem with that, even though it was a zoning violation. But eventually the density, the area filled in, and then people complained about it. And that could be 10 years after the violation existed and remained. So I don't know that you want to put in time frames and people make a complaint and they're going to get no response from staff.
Right.
I don't think that's what this does, though, does it?
This is just once you know about it.
Know about it.
And I think that
If it's
there
never
are
been complained on it in the past.
Yeah, once you know about
I'm looking at this in terms of procedural. And that's why I'm not using the term statute of limitation. That's
different. That's different. That's
thing.
legal.
This is what I feel that I would expect our staff to do in terms of, you know about it, you've exhausted the opportunity to work with them. Now comes the time to take stronger action against them.
And a year.
Move on it.
And you think a year would be enough?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I don't have any particular problem. I just wanted to make sure we didn't go against current stature or some kind of limitation that we couldn't get around. I understand your point. All right, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, okay? Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.